Good evening and a warm welcome to all of our viewers around the world. And tonight is a very, very special evening. We have Kireth Kart. Good evening, Kireth. It's great to have you on the show.
What an intro. What a highlight reel that was. Huge.
Well,
now it's just me.
I always regard all my guests as legends of the sport of GT sport racing. And you've done some amazing stuff. So we'll get into all of that in a few minutes' time. But a warm welcome to you on the show, and we've got lots of people waiting with questions. So it's great to see you all tonight from, I know, all over the world, from New Zealand and Australia. Some people getting up at 5:30 in the morning just for the show, which is very much appreciated. So Kireth, from the beginning, as they do like in Star Wars, how does it all start? Your racing, because you're a karter and you're a sim racer. What started first?
I think, it is interesting to think of it like that. Now, the two paths of karting and sim racing have basically combined to be the same thing. So I see karting and sim racing as my main hobby now. But I didn't jump in a kart till I was 18, actually. So definitely it was sim racing, or you can't really call it sim racing, but racing games at the beginning. So I guess if I really think about it, my first ever kind of memory of playing a game actually was and I must be about, I don't know, like 5 or something. I had a hand-me-down laptop. It was like a compact laptop, and the screen was broken on it. Someone had stepped on it, which is why it made its way to me. And it was MS-DOS, so there's no Windows or anything like that. It was all just, type everything, black and white. So to plug it into a monitor, and on that laptop was Jeff Crammond's GP1, with all of the names, Coulthard, Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, just all of those now like iconic names in F1, Hakkinen, everyone.
Yeah.
And I used to play that. I used to have A and Z on my keyboard and the full stop and the comma.
Oh yeah.
And that was my first ever memory of playing a racing game, and that was by far the best game I had for years.
Yeah.
In my head, the graphics in that game are just like phenomenal, better than GT Sport. So that was my first ever game. Obviously, F1 was big in my family, so we used to watch F1 all the time on a Saturday and Sunday. And then yes, I kept playing racing games. My first ever console was I got a Game Boy Color. When I was maybe, I don't know, about 7 or 8, something like that. And that had a racing game called RC Pro-Am on it, which was like an isometric, racing game. We used to control RC cars going on track, and it was all very basic. But that was a game I played for ages as well. And then when I'm really kind of delving back into the memories here. When I was about, I think so when I was about 12 or 13, my grandparents got an Xbox. And they lived a long way away, but when I used to visit them, I used to play on the Xbox. And that Xbox came with one DVD that had Sega GT and Jet Set Radio Future on it, which is just like, it's the most value out of any disc I've ever got. So Sega GT was my first, not really a sim racer, but like a GT style racer. I didn't know it at the time because I'd never played GT Sport, Gran Turismo, sorry, but it's very similar to Gran Turismo. You have to buy your cars and work your way up and apply upgrades and stuff. So that was that for a long time. Then I went through PCs. So I was having games on PCs like F1 2001 by EA Sports. I had a Microsoft Sidewinder wheel. I actually didn't really use a lot. And then I didn't get into GT style games until when I was doing my GCSEs. Weirdly, we got a PlayStation 2 that came with GT4. So that was kind of like a bit tempting when I was doing my revising my exams. But I really enjoyed that, and that was a great game.
Yeah.
And then, but even that PS2 by then was like years and years and years old. GT4 had been out for like forever.
Yeah.
But when I was 18, I think on my 18th birthday, I got an Xbox 360, and that came with Forza Motorsport 4, and that is the first time I kind of started taking it a little bit more seriously than just messing around and crashing into people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I turned ABS off, and I tried to get a single player, tried to get a bit at my braking. All the way through here, by the way, I'd never done manual gears ever. So I wasn't taking it that seriously. I was just messing around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I guess at 18, that's when that's my kind of history of playing racing games. And then at 18, when I went to university, I started karting for the first time. So I remember I saw like a poster in the university, like a black A4. Someone made it on Word, saying, "Do you want to drive go-karts? If so, come to this room at this time."
Wow.
And I went there at that time, and there were four of us in the room. There was a guy who had written the poster, and there were three others. One was a guy who was doing dentistry, one was a guy who was doing business, and it was me.
Yeah.
And this guy who organised said, "Look, I've managed to get as an entry to this championship called the British Universities Karting Championship. They use these karts called Club 100. They're really fast.
Yeah.
I've got budget from the uni. We just need to turn up."
Wow.
And we were like, "Yeah."
Absolutely.
And then university, I did a lot of karting with those guys. Ended up actually running the society or the club with them. One of them still does Club 100 and is very fast. He's a Class 1 driver. One of them went back to Malaysia and now works for Porsche or something. And now I kind of, do sim racing. So it's interesting how that,
how it's
kind of,
yeah.
And then just to tie it off, I guess I didn't do karting after uni for a long time. I was playing a lot of football, a lot of rugby, playing football and rugby about 3 times a week. And it was only a couple of years ago I started to, for like parties and stuff, I suggest, why don't we go karting and things like that. And in the kind of like the stag events and the mates karting, I was okay. It kind of rekindled that.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Actually, I spent some time at university getting okay at karting, and I always thought university, by the way, I thought I'm way too old to go karting. There were loads of other people who've been karting since they were kids, and I thought I'm way too old for this. Whereas now I look back and think, if I'd carried on like my mate, I might be a lot better. It's weird how that.
Yes, there are a lot of older people in karting, even in the quite high up championships, aren't they? It seems they've been doing it for a long time, but it is a great thing to do. But carry on. You were saying.
I can't remember where was I? Yeah, so then I was doing karting a bit like casually every so often, and then last year I started going to a track called Daytona Sandown Park, kind of more regularly, and winning races there, like the open races. And I thought, okay, well, I'm reaching the limit here of how much better I'm going to be in terms of the competition, because it's just open races and people are coming for fun, and that's great, but maybe I can try and be better. So end of last year, I tested again for Club 100, and got approved or whatever to come back into Club 100. I did a few one-off Club 100 races, and at the beginning of this year, I started Club 100 again, kind of full time. It's been a weird season, obviously.
I've
done about 6 or 7 rounds, maybe, in the last year. And then at the beginning of this year, I did a GT Sport training session with David Perrell.
Oh, wow.
Right at the beginning of the year, so very early January. And that is kind of when I first started to take GT Sport seriously. Is not quite the right word, but putting a lot of time in GT Sport and kind of exploring what I could do in it and really enjoying it, and enjoying getting faster and enjoying going up the rankings, and seeing fast drivers ahead of me, and actually, because that's the beauty of GT Sport. You see the same drivers again and again and again, and everyone's improving. And just like when I go down to the local karting circuit, if when we're in the changing room, I see a few people that I know are fast, and they can kind of, you enjoy it. Like, it's gonna be a good race. I've got to raise my game here. It's the same in GT Sport. When the lobby loads up, you kind of see these names. So I've enjoyed that process. And then kind of the last, I don't know, what is it? Yeah, all of this year has been kind of leading up to where we are now, kind of taking GT Sport, I say, quite seriously. I need to think of that word seriously, but spending a lot of time in it, doing a bit of iRacing and stuff like that. Streaming, just having the best community in GT Sport, full stop. There's no better community than the Freelance racing community.
Everybody says that when they come on the show. They always defend their community. No, it's very, very relaxed. Obviously, I was watching a bit of it last night, and I just made a comment or two here, and it was just nice because you were just talking about the pedals, your pedal set, and how they moved and all of that while watching a Renault Clio Cup car race around the track. And then you were doing all of that there. So no, it is a very, very good community. I think the whole of sim racing is really becoming something very special, because a lot of us, we're all motorsport fans and we love to watch the action in real life. But this is a great way for us to get into motorsport. And I think it's reinvigorating a lot of motorsport fans, because now we can't wait to get to a real event. And I think as things hopefully ease up with COVID, there'll be a chance that there'll be a lot more sim events at like Brands Hatch and Silverstone. And so I think hopefully more people will be going to these things, and because you feel you can take part in them as well. When you see what happens with things like Gran Turismo, Tidgely, for example, doing that way back in 2013 with I think it was with Nissan, wasn't it, when they had the championship with that. So there's all sorts of things happening. And the more I speak to sim racers and commentators, they're all saying this, that they can't wait to actually have the release of COVID, because there's so many things they want to do, new racing leagues they want to do, like with things like the Sim Grid and others. It all seems to be happening. So how have you found this year after being given training with David Perel? How did that change your driving on GT Sport?
The main thing that changed for me is that it's something that I've applied in both karting and sim racing. I always thought the way to get faster was to brake as late as possible. And David Perel just completely busted that myth for me. It's about being smooth. It's about not asking the car and the tyres to do too much. It's about carrying the most speed through the corners. And if you're just braking way too late and asking the tyres to do too much and going through in like a cloud of smoke, it's not fast. So we did our session at Dragon Trail Gardens, and there's like a multi-apex sequence there. It's like 8 million apexes.
Towards the end of the circuit.
And if you go in too hot, it just doesn't work. So David Perel was just saying, you don't need to be on the throttle here. Just turn the wheel. You've got enough speed. Be off the throttle. Let the car coast through. And that was something that had never ever occurred to me. I always thought I either need to be on the brake or the throttle, really. And that was my first real, don't know what the word is, but actual building block of sim racing. There's other things now about being progressive on the brake, being progressive off the brake, trail braking, not dropping the throttle as soon as you kind of get around the hairpin. And those kind of things have all come, I think, hopefully. But that one about just, it's all right. Sometimes you don't need to be on the throttle. Just slow is fast. That was the thing I took away the most. And I think it has actually been quite important for my racing.
So we'll start with some of the questions from our very eager audience here. And for all of you who are watching, make sure you write more in the comments, and I'll pick as many as I can for Kireth to answer. And the first one that was right at the very top was, how do you manage to read the corners so well?
How do I manage to read the corners so well? I don't know. That's a bit of a difficult question. If that question is, how do I read corners well when I haven't done a track before or a combo, I think it is by applying those principles and just kind of, trying to understand, well, what comes after this corner? Is it a straight? Is it another corner? Is it a left-hander? Is it a right-hander? Where should I position the car? Do I need to be carrying a lot of speed in here? Do I need to actually be braking a lot earlier? So those are kind of principles that I try and apply. And it is actually quite important for me, because with karting, I go around circuits, and in Club 100 and some of the championships, you only get like literally 5 minutes practice before you're in the race. So you need to learn the track as quick as possible. So I think learning tracks quickly It's something I want to be better at. I mean, this week, when we did it on Sunday for Daily Race C, I don't think I was very good at it, actually. So that was a bit disappointing. But it's something normally I like to kind of try and get on top and trying to understand where I should be carrying speed and not carrying speed. I don't really watch track guys anymore. I used to watch track guys all the time.
Yeah.
But now I don't watch track guys, and I just try and find my own way, kind of find the speed and then follow faster drivers on track. We're lucky we can do that because we have very fast drivers in the community.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that answered the question, or if that even was the question.
Yeah, no, that was a very good answer to the question. And there I was saying that they're all easy questions, but that one had to got you going from the start. But now here is a question from Keith will own you. It is, in kart racing, I noticed that the back support barely covers the lower half of the back. Is there a reason for that?
I know what you're saying. I think there are some rental karts in the States where they have a full back up the top to give you kind of neck support, and it just looks weird.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Most kart seats in the UK that I'm aware of are made by a guy called Keith Tillett, I think. Tillett seats. So that's just the way he's done it, and he's like a kart guru. It does allow you to move your top half of your body around. So when I'm going around a very fast, high-speed corner, I will lean my body to the outside and try and get more weight on that outside wheel, so I get a bit more grip. If it was a bit more restricted, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
It might. I don't know if it's a safety thing or not. You think if the car turns over, it'd be safer having kind of almost like a roll hoop thing.
Yeah.
It's actually something I never really thought about.
It's some people don't need them and some people do, isn't it? I always need them because that's the way my back is. It's too rough, and I'll find out. I used to do it without the support, and I would cut my back.
You mean the inside? Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about the height of the seat, because the heights of the seat are low compared to racing seats. They don't have any of the support. But in terms of the insert, I always wear an insert because
it's sore on your sides, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's sore on you feel it if you don't, on your hips and things, and on your stomach and things around the sides. But I remember once walking away from a go-karting event in Lanzarote. We were just there on holiday, and it was an arrive and drive. It was an amazing circuit because it was right near a volcano. And you literally, if you went off, they would never find you because it was over a hill and just dropped away to nothing at all. But it was a great kart track. But I hadn't been wearing the support. And when I walked away, someone said, "Oh, your back's bleeding." And I looked at the back, and I'd cut myself on the back because they have it's the screws in the sides, I think. So it must have just been an odd bit where they put it on the seat, and that had dug in.
I think the health and safety, and I've been to a few tracks in the Canary Islands, and
the
health and safety are not that high. The good thing about wearing an insert is that if you have a crash without an insert, you can actually break your ribs fairly innocuously. I've definitely had bruised ribs before, but the insert just kind of,
it keeps you a bit safer.
Nice and snug.
So, in terms of racing now and your favourite games, is GT Sport really your number one game that you like to? I know obviously you play it a lot, but is there anything else that you like to play, or is it your number one favourite?
I want iRacing to be my favourite game. I'd love to be like, I'm always in iRacing, but I'm still not quite there with iRacing. So GT Sport is my favourite game. GT Sport is the best value. I know I was talking about Sega GT and Jet Set Radio Future on one disc before, but GT Sport is probably even better value. It's just phenomenal. The amount of tracks, the amount of cars. The great thing about the community that we have is we try out different combos, unusual combos. So yesterday, we were in a Bugatti VGT that we'd never ever drive otherwise, and it's one of the cars in the game, and it's a great car to drive. And it's just in iRacing, you have to pay £15 for every car. So GT Sport is a quality game. My only kind of the only thing to bear in mind with GT Sport is that ABS is basically always on. It's a good leveler, but it's also something to be conscious of, because when you go into a car or go into iRacing, you don't have that luxury. So that's the only kind of thing that I notice, and I would like more ABS off racing GT Sport. I think that would be interesting. But it's just such good value for money. It's a phenomenal game.
It is. I mean, and it's always been good value, and you can pick them up second hand for next to nothing. So people starting out, it's a great game to get off with. So to start start your career with racing. Now, we've got another great question from Ian B55. It says, how did the name Free
Can I just interrupt? I saw Rory in the chat. Rory, I bought this using your affiliate link, so hopefully you got some dosh, Rory. But I didn't. I used your affiliate link and then I bought it. So
you'll be expecting a Christmas card back from Rory then for helping him out for that. No, that's fantastic. But yes, no, I was going to ask the question there. How did the name Frey Bentos come about for the team?
So Frey Bentos Racing. So I've had to tell us a few times now because people was like, "What's going on with Frey Bentos Racing?" So the correct. I feel like this is on. Do you know what's that TV show where they talk about your history? It's like, who are you?
This is your life. So,
yeah, there's the one where they go proper back in your family.
The history. Oh, I know what you mean. This is who you are, or something.
Something like that. Anyway, it's on the BBC. I feel like this is kind of the history of Frey Bentos Racing. So we open up those books and go back to Victorian times. So we were doing a race, and there's a guy in our community called Steve, also known as Interstellar Dweller, also known as Venture 26. And we were talking about what track we should do next, and people were saying, should we do Seaside, should we do Monza? And Steve, in a hurry, said, let's go to Beans Hatch. So we didn't say Brands Hatch, we said Beans Hatch in his excitement. So that got us thinking, what other tracks could be named after tinned foods? I think we about Spam, Frankenchomps, and there were some other ones I can't remember. But then we were like, we don't actually know enough tinned foods. So we were trying to work out other tinned foods. And we came up with Frey Bentos. And then the rest, as they say, is history.
Because I've seen Frey Bentos. You get them every good farm foods and every kind of store, aren't they? That's it.
I think a lot of people in the community have had Frey Bentos at one point, for good or for worse. But I think the most important thing about Frey Bentos, or the best thing about Frey Bentos, is the fantastic liveries that people create. So big shout out to the likes of Al, Barry, Alex Wilmot, just creating just unbelievable liveries about Frey Bentos. Al's, if anyone hasn't seen Al's Frey Bentos Racing R8 Group 3, it is just absolutely stunning. And that's the history of Frey Bentos. Now, that's the name of our kind of, community. We say we're Team KRT Racing at the moment for Frey Bentos Racing. I think there was a discussion earlier about whether we switch over to Chicago Town. We'll have to see.
That's very good. I have to admit, I do like all these food kind of positionings and all that, how you name it all after. That's brilliant. And so what are your kind of goals now that you're heading off with GT Sport and you're up into A+? What would be your ideal target for GT Sport?
That's a good question, actually. I should probably know. GT Sport is probably coming to end of life.
Because the new one will be coming in next year, isn't it? Once they launch PS5.
The thing is about GT Sport is that I feel like I've never really thought about this so much, but I guess there's like a hierarchy of drivers. So at the top, you kind of have inverted commas professional drivers or semi-pro or people that can spend many, many hours a day practicing. And it's very difficult to compete with these guys because they put in so much time and they reap the rewards of it. They know the tracks and the cars and the combos and the quirks of the game and everything inside out. And they are super, super fast. And then kind of below that, you have the very, very, very fast drivers who, are also working or, can't quite put in the time. Or they're streaming, for example. So they can't just kind of knuckle down and they kind of, just do it on their own. They're kind of streaming and being entertaining everything. And then below that, or maybe I've fallen into that, I don't know. And then below that, you kind of have average drivers like me who are just trying to become better, but don't have all the time. And we're streaming as well. So it would be nice to race against. So we're A+ now. I think when we last did an FIA last Saturday, we got 250 points, which is not.
Yeah, that's pretty
bad.
good.
So it'd be good to kind of race with more people in that second category. So I guess people like Rory, people like Key, although Key is very fast. Like the other YouTubers, people like Basic Ollie,
Yeah.
we race from time to time. In fact, we had some very good battles with Basic Ollie a few weeks ago. We've raced with Super GT before, but it'd be kind of good to be in the mix. There, I think it's like a personal goal. That would be really, really cool to be in that mix.
And so, as you were saying earlier, with GT7 coming very, very soon, what would you like to see in that game? What would be your ideal improvements from the current game?
Dynamic weather. I would love. I've always wanted to do endurance racing, like proper endurance, like 6-12 hour racing, and have that sensation of time passing, and maybe it gets wet and then it gets dry and stuff like that. So yeah, for me, dynamic weather, bigger grids, and the game is pretty good. So it's not a huge wish list for me. I mean, if you take the accessibility of GT Sport and the fact people can play it on a controller and be very, very fast, and it's cheap, and you get a lot, relatively speaking, you get a lot of content included, and then you bring in like the dynamic weather and the grids of like ACC and iRacing, and then also, which is something now that doesn't interest me that much, but I know it interests a lot of people, which is kind of the old school GT of used cars and all the single player progression. That sounds like a hell of a game. So yeah, from my perspective, it's pretty good. If it was basically the same game with bigger grids and dynamic weather, I'd be probably playing
happy.
Yeah.
And of course, the big question that seems to be the one at the moment is the penalty system. I'm sure you'll get it from your community as well, of unfair penalties and all sorts of claims. What do you think at the moment of the penalty system? Do you think it's working well, or do you think it's not so good?
I think the penalty system is a means to an end, actually, which sometimes I forget. The penalty system is there to kind of influence driver behavior, actually. Yeah. So if the penalty system has made the racing cleaner, the penalty system is doing its way in a job. So I think we all agree that the penalty system has got harsher, and unlike in previous iterations, they haven't kind of taken it back a step. It's just been kept there. But I have to say, in all of the kind of A+ races I do, maybe that's what we should expect, but the standard of driving is very high and very fair. When I do my AutoCat racing and I go from the back, it's as bad as it always has been. And I think that's because the incentive doesn't apply there. People there aren't really that worried about trying to get to A or to A+. There's no, if you get enough you never get disqualified from a race, no matter how many penalties you accrue. So there's no disincentive for these drivers to change their driving style. So if you take someone who's playing a lot of Need for Speed, or whatever arcade games, the Crew and stuff like that, they can apply that driving style in GT Sport online, and there's actually no penalty for them. So maybe it's a tale of two games now, as I've often said in the stream. It's like when you go from the back in like CB lobbies, it is a completely different game to doing like an A+ race. Completely different. Maybe that's the way it's always going to be.
It is fascinating as to how it all works, and what's people's views on how can they make it better, how can we get it, is it fair enough? And as you say, if you can't get disqualified, then there isn't an incentive to do any better if you're at the lower grids. I mean, I suppose people starting out want to try and improve, and a lot of guys, I know that probably like yourself, have more than one PSN, and you have a second one to try and build or try and start from the back. You've still got that, you're wanting to try and improve and get up there. And so you're competing against people who maybe have never played before, or they're just starting out, isn't it? So the radar's not on. They don't look in their mirrors. They don't have parking sensors or anything to try and help them see where you are on the circuit and things like that. So it does make a big difference. But what would you say? I mean, you were saying that you'd had a very good result at one of the FIAs. You got 295 points in one of the races. What's been your best race?
I wish I got 295.
Oh, was it?
250.
250. Oh, that's I got 19
for me now,
my last attempt. So I got 19 when I attempted it a few weeks back. But I started reasonable and I went to the back. And I got spun off all over the place. But so what's been your best race in recent weeks and months?
That's been my best race last Saturday. The best racing I have in GT Sport, and basically I never ever play GT Sport unless I'm streaming. So every time I play GT Sport, I'm streaming. The best racing we have is on the Fridays and the Sundays, and we actually have our own lobbies because there's that element of racing really hard, but also really fair. And sometimes despite what I've just said about point system, sometimes in the daily races, people are racing hard, but people won't give you your place back. It's just like prisoner's dilemma kind of thing. You don't actually know who you're racing against really. Whereas in the lobbies we do, it's very, very hard and fair. Otherwise, in terms of the daily race in FIA, the race at FIA last Saturday was probably one of our best races in G Sport ever. I don't know if it's months ago now, when we did our road to A+, we did a week where we were like, right, we're going to try and get to A+ now. There were 2 days where we tried, we were getting so close to that. I can't remember if it's 50,000 DR. So close. It was at Largo Maggiore, so the track hadn't really driven before, but we really went for it. And we streamed for like, I don't know, 6 hours or something. And we were taking these points, getting close, and then losing points and gaining points, losing points. And eventually we did it. But that was some of the best racing because it actually meant something a bit more. Which is, I think that's one of the cool things about sim racing, is that online sim racing, is that there's a lot more context to it. You're racing against real people. When you go side by side into a corner, you get this extra layer of, I really want to break later than this person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those are probably the two on sport mode, probably the ones that stand out the most. I mean, I've done so much racing this year. It kind of, there's a lot. But those two, stand out.
Yeah. Now, one of the questions we have here, we've got lots of very supportive things like saying Friday nights lobbies are the best. And what was it? The Anders Pack has said the Sim Hub, it's made by Bugbear Bites, Wreckfest, flat out. Their first game, I believe, is quite old and quite hard. And then you were also saying that the FIA race that you did last week was superb. And Baz FBR says, don't remind me of those races in the Red Bull Juniors. It must have been memorable as to what happened.
Barry was in my FIA race. And I had number 20 on my car. So we're in a very high lobby with some very fast drivers. It wasn't that many splits down from top split. And I had 20 in my car. I don't know what Barry had. And we thought, right, we're going to try and do a slipstream here in quali. So we were all really excited. We were streaming. We're like, yeah, let's do the slipstream. And then I think Barry went first to lead me out. And then the slipstream was so strong, I caught him. And then we hit each other and we wrecked both of our laps. The next time I went ahead, and I went too far ahead, and Barry never caught up. So in the end, we completely bottled it. It was really good fun. And we had 2 Free Bentos Racing Red Bull Junior cars out there in FIA in quite a high split, and we were working as a team. It was very, very cool. But I think Barry, the race didn't go according to plan for Barry, unfortunately.
I know that seems to be the case, isn't it? Now we've got a question from Loopy Racing. If I can find it here, it was just in my of travel here. It was, what is your favourite track and car combination in GT Sport?
I think Monza or Seaside in Group 3s. I really enjoyed Monza. I just don't know what it is about Monza. Monza, when it's sunny, I feel like it gets to the essence of racing other people, which is side by side. Who's going to brake later? Can you defend the cutback? That's what the track is. It's just such a great track. Yeah. And you get to the point where you can be very, very, very consistent with your braking. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's kind of, if you do a long race at Monza, by the end of the race, you feel like you're braking on a 50 pence piece. One, for example. So yeah, I love Monza, and then Dragon Trail Seaside because of Death Chicane. It's just some of the most iconic virtual track in history. And I think what they did to create that track is phenomenal. The fact it's a made up track it's so good, and it works the other way around. It's not quite as good the other way around, to say.
I think the normal way is better. But it is fantastic. I mean, the surrounding effects as well are lovely, and they have put a huge amount of work into that. I know a lot of people remember the early tracks from Gran Turismo, and they are nice, but I'm kind of not so sure if they're that fitting for today's races? Because more people have gone for like the real racetracks and also the ones that they've had in the last few years, which have actually been pretty good. So I wonder if in the new game, if they bring that about, if that will make a big difference, if people will really like it. It's almost like going back as well to being able to tune your car and go up the grid that way. I'm not so sure now that will maybe take off as much, because I think people love GT Sport because of multiplayer and because you can go online and race. And I wonder whether, although it's a nice thing to have, will that actually be an added benefit to the game for a lot of people, or will it just be ignored? Because I think now, I don't know about yourself, I don't tend to do the career mode very much. You might do the circuit training and things like that, but do you find that you've done much of that in GT Sport?
No, I haven't done any of it. But I think it's also, and like I was saying when I was talking about, what GT7 might bring, I know that is a big feature for a lot of people, and it is a cool feature. I think for other people it's not that important. But when we were talking about my kind of gaming history and my first ever GT style game, which was Sega GT on the original Xbox, like 2003 or something, I played that single player for hours and hours and hours and hours and days. And now it would be incredibly boring and mundane for me to kind of do that, to grind short races to afford a new exhaust on my car. It doesn't interest me as much. When I was younger, it did. But also online race, that was before Xbox Live probably. So so for other people I can see it's important, and I think it's good that they're going to add it. For me, I really enjoy racing against other people. In its own is the test, rather than the test of how long can I grind this track for XP or credits or whatever. I'm now much more about that. It's about it's a test of yourself, and a test of yourself against other drivers, and that is what I enjoy the most. So I'm sure lots of people enjoy it. I think a lot of people who have nostalgia for old GT games will enjoy it. Whether the kind of new fans or the people that PS5 was their first console enjoy it that much, I don't know. But I'll have to see.
That's the thing. We've got a very good question here from Baz FBR. It says, Kireth, now that you have upgraded your T150 to the CSL Elite, how much more confident do you feel taking on some of FBR top drivers such as Roswald and NM-1?
I don't think the T150 to the CSL Elite is going to make that much of a difference. I don't think. I think the difference may come in the pedals. So if I can get the load cells set up right, so I can really use them in the way that they're going to help me, which is going to be very consistent, no flex. I can kind of gauge how I'm braking by the pressure I'm applying. That may make a difference. But as I said at the time when we were talking about getting them, I don't think new kit makes you faster. I think it's I don't know if it's like with cars. If you have a beat down hatchback, and then you exchange it for a nice coupe, it's actually not going to make you faster getting through the city. It's just going to make it more comfortable. It's kind of the same with the sim racing equipment. It's not going to make me faster. That's down to me, but it's making it more enjoyable. It's also giving me more headaches in terms of like how I mount stuff, but that is also part of the enjoyment of sim racing. I definitely am an advocate for sim racing being as accessible as possible, and you don't need equipment to do it. There's lots of people that play on a pad and who are very fast. People like Donator, people like Treviso, who's another Club 100 driver, who has been top split. He is top split. People like Tijani, who was GT Academy. People like Marky Boy, who's another Club 100 driver. Lots of people on pads are very, very fast. So
it is possible, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely.
Now we have a good question here from AL71B. Question: Do you plan to display your T150 like a trophy?
No.
No.
No. It's just in the cupboard somewhere in case this one breaks. But that is something I have thought about for other stuff, like electronics and things that you feel you have memories about. The other day I was rummaging through some stuff, some screws, and I found my old Game Boy in this bottom of this box because it turned on actually. So that Game Boy hadn't been turned on for probably like more than a decade.
Wow.
And it just goes to show you, I just accidentally flipped the switch and it did the Game Boy sound. And I was thinking, oh, that's cool. Stuff like that, I think it would be nice to kind of display it. So I just don't have enough space to display anything. But the idea of displaying equipment and gadgets and things that you have used for a long time, like old phones that you used for, is I don't know why we don't do it more.
It's a kind of historical thing. It's like your own mini museum in your house, isn't it, when you have things like that? Now, I'm sure people are saying on the video, there are a couple of big trophies in the background there, along with that very snazzy looking helmet. And what are those trophies from?
Trophies are from, so last couple of months I've been entering a championship at Daytona Sandler Park, which is the track that I kind of got back into karting, doing open races. So last 2 rounds I entered their championship, and last 2 rounds I picked up these trophies. So actually I uploaded the video today of the latest one race and the latest round I did. But yeah, it's nice to. I'm not crazy about. I've got loads of trophies from open races and stuff all over the place, and loads more that I've lost. I'm not crazy about trophies, but these ones are nice because it's nice to go back to the track where it kind of all started again for me, and actually be competing for trophies. That is cool. But also to caveat it, karting is like and sim racing as well. It's like a hierarchy. It's like a ladder, and it just goes all the way up to the top. So I'm not as fast in the car as Nathan or Roswald or Treviso or Marky Boyle or any of the other Club 100 drivers I race with. So it's kind of when I'd race in Club 100, I tend to finish 18th, 19th, 20th out of 35 drivers. When I go to Daytona Sandler Park and do their championship, I'm picking up trophies. So it's not like I don't think I've made it. It's just nice for me personally because of that track was one where I kind of got back into karting, so it's nice to win trophies. So these ones are actually they're nice trophies for me.
I think everyone has the tracks as well, isn't it, that you kind of focus on that you're naturally maybe better at. And because you can be good at some and you struggle with others, and I suppose it's the drivers that are able to practice so much on all the kind of tracks, and it's through practice that you get better with all of these ones. But no, I'm sure that will continue to go well, and that when you try all the different circuits, it's just a matter of time before you get up there as well. That now here I'll ask the question of tips for all your viewers here and supporters. No doubt they'll be wanting to know, what are your tips for sim racing success? If there were maybe 3 things that you think make a big difference in sim racing, what would they be?
3 things. I think first is practice. Practice with Ghost. I'll bundle that into one thing. We were talking about this the other night. We're doing some time trialing late at night, and people were asking why using a Ghost isn't it in your way? And actually, you pick up a lot subconsciously from the Ghost. Even if it's a long way ahead of you. So practicing with a Ghost, I think. The other one is slow in, fast out. It's just such a good mantra. And if you're not sure where you're losing time, if you just try slow and fast out, there's a good chance it will work for you. Maybe you're just going in too hot and all the speeds on the exit. The delta in GT Sport is such a good way of seeing that. And I wish I could have a delta in karting. You can't use a micron in Club 100, but I wish I could kind of have a similar thing. That's why I apply all the analytics to my karting videos, where I put all the GPS, the lap timing and speed as an overlay, so I can kind of compare laps. So those 2 are the big ones. The third one, I think, is probably you have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's a bit of a fruitless exercise. And I think a lot of the people who stream GT Sport do really enjoy it. And that's also why they're fast, because it's kind of like a holy trinity of you enjoy it, spend more time, you get faster, you enjoy it more, spend more time, and it just kind of perpetuates. So why do you want to be faster? If you want to be faster because you really enjoy sim racing, you want to push yourself, and that's great. If you want to be faster because you feel like you're too slow and you're frustrated and you feel like you should be faster, that I don't know, might not work. But if you kind of if you want to get faster and you're enjoying it and you put in the practice, slow and fast out, I'm sure you'll become faster.
That is-
We see on my channel that
Yeah.
how long sometimes it takes me to get faster, and there's no secret. It's just
so in fast out. Yeah. No, that is a good one, and very, very good. Make sure I should have said to everyone, take notes, get your note paper ready. And this is the time when you learn invaluable information on sim racing. And now you've also got a very good question from Baz FBR saying, Kireth, do you think Gran Turismo is setting a benchmark for other sim games to follow?
I think yes, in terms of accessibility. I think it shows that the fact you can have top 16 races, and previously they led to events around the world that were streamed with fantastic commentary and production values, and people could get there using a pad, is I think where other sim games fall behind. Other sim games are not accessible. So I think it definitely leads the way there. I think the other place it leads the way is in terms of viewer enjoyment. I think it is the most enjoyable sim, if we can call it a sim, to watch streamers do on YouTube. The racing is close and it's furious and it's well balanced. So yeah, those two key ones, I think it does lead the way. I wish iRacing was just a bit more accessible, but it's not, and that's part of the beauty of iRacing. It's just ruthless.
Yeah.
I was watching Rory just do a stream the other day. He was doing Bathurst in iRacing, and he got taken out in like half an hour, damage, and that was the end of the race. It's brutal, but it's highs and lows. So yeah, but I went off topic there. But GT Sport accessibility, I think, it is the most accessible sim for sure.
Yeah, and we've got a good question here from Lippy Racing. Will we see any Kireth merchandise in the near future?
Probably not. Yeah, don't think so.
So that's not on the cards at the moment.
No, I mean, what the purpose of merchandise is to sell stuff. I think we do it virtually. Our merchandise is Frey Bentos Racing liveries and stuff like that. It's available for everyone to use for free, and it's created by the community, and it's part of the community. So that is our merchandise. In terms of physical merchandise, no.
But what you will see, Lippy, is there will be some soon Fat Man in the Cheap Sim mugs coming. I ordered them today, so you won't go waiting. I'm not sure how long it will take them to get all the way to the other side of the world, but I'm sure we can get it sorted. Now, how does somebody go about getting some of those libraries? Perhaps people who are not in your community as yet and would like to maybe have a look at some of those libraries. Do you make them available? Are they on GT Sport on the library bit, or
they end up on the best way is to join the Discord we have for the community, and there is a liveries channel, and people upload their kind of works in progress and decals and inspiration, and there's requests, and people have started doing logos for other people and things like that. So that's the best place to kind of really be in it. But if you're just in GT Sport, if you search Kireth or you search Frey Bentos, they should come up when they're actually finalized.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. And now, what would be, because obviously you've done lots of sim racing, lots of karting, would you ever like to have a go in a race in another series? It could be like hatchbacks, touring cars, whatever it might be. Is there, or a race day somewhere at a specific track? Is there anything that takes your fancy that you would love to have a go in a real race?
That's a very good question. I've never really thought about it. So I have driven a Formula 3000 car before at Silverstone, and I think open-wheeled Formula style cars is I'd always be up for driving those. I think they're about pure racing. The GT3 style cars, I don't know. If you go back all the way to right at the beginning of this stream, we're talking about my gaming heritage. GP1, sorry, Jeff Cramer's GP1. Is what I played for years and years and years and years, and watching F1. So kind of that open-wheeled racing is what will always be in my first memories as racing. So any opportunity to drive an open-wheeled Formula car, I'll be all over it. So I do often look out for discounts and stuff on these kind of experiences.
To see what you can do, isn't it? Yeah. What was it like driving the Formula 3000 car? Because I mean, they were really powerful. That was like, was that not the equivalent of the old kind of F2? Or like, now it was because I'm sure Jean Alesi won the Formula 3000
they were dialed back, but I can remember the clutch didn't really exist. It was basically a button.
All right.
Same with the brake, and very loud.
Yeah.
And very, very, very cool. And the sensation of kind of feeling the speed and feeling the grip, and the inevitable grin on your face when you accelerate down the straight. I think that is open wheel cars. They are built from the first sketch on the chief designer's drawing board to just go as fast as possible.
That's because, and you were saying, so was it actually a clutch pedal then, or was it just an accelerator and a brake? And was it a paddle for the clutch, or
no? It was a clutch pedal.
Right.
I don't know, that was a safety thing or something, but there was no travel in the clutch. And
so how did you set off? Did you just put the clutch down, select it on the paddle?
You have to rev quite high.
Yeah.
Going back now, but you have to rev quite high. Basically, everyone stalled it because no one was revving it high enough to actually
take away.
You have to rev it like ridiculously high.
And then did you have to, obviously there's no movement in the clutch. It must be quite hard to know where the biting point is. Or was it just a matter of if the revs were high enough and you let off the clutch, it just went away?
Yeah, it was just, I just remember it being like a button, basically. It's not like a clutch on a road car where there's a biting point. It was it was on and off kind of.
And what were the brakes like? Were they like a solid pedal, and it would have been very solid, and you just have to put in as much pressure?
I remember they were very stiff, but I remember it was actually almost a bit like when I think about when I went to these load cells first time. It was actually quite hard to get to full braking pressure, which is good because it was hard to lock up. I did lock up once actually. I had a bit of a sideways moment. But I think also those cars take time to warm up. I remember thinking, it was after I'd done my stint of karting at university. I remember thinking I can kind of see the lineage back from a Club 100 car up to the Formula car. It's kind of that pure performance lineage.
That's quite a thing. I mean, F3. I mean, how long ago was that when you did Formula 3000? Was it Silverstone?
10 years ago at Silverstone.
That's amazing because that's
getting delayed, but yeah,
that's a proper car to do a track day in, isn't it? I mean, normally they're lucky if they give you a Formula Ford, and that's about it. So, have you done the Skip Barber racing in iRacing? Because I know quite a few people quite like that.
So I do have the Skip Barber. I've done a couple of races, but the racing I do most in iRacing, the real reason why I have iRacing is I do the Motorsport UK F3 Championship. Which has been running now for about 7-8 months, maybe. There's still a few rounds to go. There's another round on Monday. It's about like a 16-round championship, and everyone is a Motorsport UK signed up racing driver. Everyone's got their racing license, and it's split into leagues. And a lot of the drivers there, they race Ginetta Juniors, they race F4 and stuff like that. British F4, I think. So they race, all like the BTCC support races. And because of lockdown, Motorsport UK, they put on this official iRacing championship. And that's what I do most in iRacing. So that is in an F3 car. And that is, I really, really enjoy that. That is, in many ways, that is a step above GT Sport in terms of the sensation, in terms of the braking. There's no ABS, so, you're always at risk of locking up. And the race, I've made a few videos on the racing there because it's been some controversial moments, but I've really enjoyed it.
Because it gives the impression that drivers are quite professional in iRacing, but because you have to go through the Mazda MX-5 category first, isn't it, when you start iRacing to get your grades up so that you're good enough to go into something else. But it looks like there could be some fairly ropey moves as well in the races that are above that.
I think, ironically, because this championship is aimed towards people who race in real life, it's not actually aimed towards people who you get 3 months free. You get 3 months free iRacing subscription if you're a Motorsport UK racing driver like I am.
Right. All right. Yeah.
So it that's how it was put together. So a lot of drivers in the championship haven't done iRacing before.
Right, yeah. That's a good thing to note, though, because a lot of people might not have Motorsport UK membership. I've got it myself, actually. I'll need to look at that because I'm hoping to get my gaming PC ready soon and to try and see what it's like doing iRacing. But no, that's quite a thing. And here's a good question for you. Is it your plan to become a full-time YouTuber? And that was by Given to Fly.
No. No. But I do want to grow the channel. And I have weekends and I have evenings. And if you look at someone like Rory, who is a great person to watch, or you look at someone like Martin Grady, he's a great person to watch. They have spoken a lot about the risk of trying to do too much with YouTube and trying to do too much with something that you enjoy. So I 100% want to keep YouTube and sim racing as something I enjoy and a hobby and not something more. I think it's very dangerous to kind of take something you enjoy and then put too much pressure on it.
Yeah.
So for those reasons, we're very, very lucky. We have the best community in GT Sport. It's such a supportive, helpful, welcoming community for all levels. I think that's the key. It's like literally all levels. We have people like Nathan, Russell, VQS, Ryan is even in there, and then people really starting out. And you can ask anyone for tips, ask anyone for help. And I think it's me as kind of someone who's doing it in the evenings and weekends. I think it's a nice part of that. I don't want to, be too serious about it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's very good because, as you say, I think it's nice to be able to enjoy YouTube and your community and have that as a nice encouragement when you're working full time as well, and not to have that push that it has to pay or it has to be the be all and end all. Which can affect things, which is I think people, they put themselves under that undue pressure, and then you can feel the stress. Then you stop enjoying the community and the racing and things like that. But in fact, that answers one of the questions from Philip Houghton, who was saying, "What's the most enjoyable thing about videos and streaming in your community?" But you were saying just how nice everybody is and how helpful they all are. Is there anything else you could add to that, perhaps?
Yeah, everyone's not always nice. But it's like I think I don't have the pressure of. I think the question was what I enjoy the most. I just enjoy racing, and I'm very lucky that I get to stream, and it takes me 2 minutes. Sometimes I'm a bit late. It takes me 2 minutes to press a button, and I'm streaming, and I'm very lucky that people want to watch and people want to join in. I'm incredibly privileged because of that, and I don't have to worry about are the videos getting views, are we getting subscribers, are we getting dislikes. It genuinely is not a thing for me because I just enjoy racing, and I'm lucky that some people want to watch, and I think that also means the stream is more relaxed and different streamers have kind of different characteristics to their community, I guess. And I think our characteristic is maybe that we're quite chilled out most of the time, quite relaxed. We do different things. We race together a lot. And I enjoy the thing I enjoy the most every week is on a Sunday, we practice next week's daily races.
All right. Yeah.
That's the thing I enjoy the most. And we normally finish by doing our own special races.
Yeah. I think that's how I found you. It was through Loopy Racing. He was in the lobby, and he said, "Oh, try and join." And for whatever reason, I couldn't find it on GT Sport lobbies. I couldn't find your group. Maybe I was looking for the wrong name or something, but I wasn't in your Discord at that point. But is that the easiest way to find your lobby? Is it in the Discord?
People have said, Discord's the easiest way because it always goes live there. But people have said they can't find it before. I don't know if it's because it's full or because I know sometimes people have had to add me and then restart the game. But I have that myself when I race in other people's lobbies. Sometimes I need to restart the game and then it pops up. But Discord is always the best place to kind of just see what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. Now, I was just quickly looking here for a question that was all there. Oh, yes. From Ian B55, what was it like when you accidentally ended up in Top Split FIA race?
Yeah, so we did end up in Top Split once. I'm trying to think back, I think it was at Autopolis in like some Nissan Skyline car that I'd never driven before, and we were doing some daily racing, and we saw that there was a last chance to get into FIA, and we thought, should we do it? And then we did it, and we ended up going into top split, and we basically just tried to not finish last. And I can't remember if we finished last or not, but yeah, it was genuinely a top split race, and it was in, with the road cars, they're hard to get into and drive off the bat. You kind of need to work them out because the brakes are normally quite bad and they don't have a lot of grip in various places and they roll a lot. And we didn't have any that time, so it was good fun. I hope we'll make it back into a top split race with the practice. That's my hope. And when the games come out for the next Xbox, next PlayStation, hopefully we'll be there at the beginning. We can kind of go from the beginning and be there rather than trying to catch up a bit like we've done in GT Sport.
Well, it sounds like with the performances you're doing, I mean, you'll be, you're to get into FIA top split is pretty good anyway. You have to be at the top of your game to do that. And so if you keep that up, I'm sure that will be the case. And you'll get, you'll keep going. And I think as GT7 arrives, it's going to be really interesting to see what the races are like, how they've improved it, the graphics any better because the machine will be a lot better, and to see what it will be like. Now, we did have another question as well. Let me quickly go back to it. How do you find it transferring from live karting to racing with sim games? As I still notice your habit of hitting the accelerator straight after braking in Gran Turismo Sport.
That's a good question. I know that when I come back from karting and I jump into the rig, I tend to be applying much more force to the brake. So yeah, that's a difference I notice. I think also in karting, what I was speaking about earlier in terms of my session with David Perrell, and he told me, yeah, chill out off the throttle. You can't always be on the throttle. Sometimes you just got to coast. That doesn't really apply in karting. Karting is much more digital with the brake and the throttle. In fact, there's a lot of double pedaling in karting. You're not really meant to do it. Yeah. But it's very much, as soon as you're off the brake, you're on the throttle.
Yeah.
So I suspect I probably do too much of that in GT Sports still. So I tend to get on the throttle a bit pre-apex because I'm lifting off the brake. And that means I actually end up kind of shooting past the apex rather than getting the optimal line. So I say that's the biggest thing for me. I don't know if anyone else in the chat is karting like Nathan or someone, but yeah, I find that kind of road cars, there's no real weight transfer in karting. It's just, if you're not on the throttle, you're not going. So you have to be on the throttle pretty much all the time. Some people on the throttle even when they're braking, just to keep the revs up. Whereas in a road car, I think the race you were talking about the other day when you were watching in the Clios, that Red Bull ring, that was very much about weight transfer and not asking the car to do too much, very gentle with the inputs. That is actually the opposite of karting. Karting, you want to be very, very aggressive with all the inputs to get the kart to basically turn quicker.
Yeah. Now that's the thing. Oh no, it's great to know that we do have some funny comments here that was saying, when is Loopy Racing going to be on the show? And I said, are you available this Thursday? And then he's come back to me saying, I don't think my language is suitable for the viewers.
You need one of those filters, those beep filters.
Yes, you might have to donate $1 for every bleep that goes across there, Loopy. But no, I'm sure we'd love to have you on the show. It would be great. Well, we've been going for just over an hour. In fact, someone's saying now it would be a Peggy 18, Loopy, if I had to put that on the show. But I do have on my YouTube channel that it's not for kids. So hopefully we would be absolutely fine. But we've done just over an hour of questions, and it's been fantastic to have you on the show here, Kireth. Now, do you have any kind of last-minute tips and kind of the things you would say for all your viewers in the community that have been subscribing to your channel and following you in your racing?
Not really. I'm always very grateful that people tune in and enjoy the racing and enjoy being part of the community. I think my question actually was to you here and how you have found it interviewing various people in the sim racing community. Have you and how kind of the coronavirus situation 2020, have you noticed things get bigger? Have you noticed things change? What have you noticed in people that you've interviewed and then kind of re-interviewed? You're in a very lucky position actually. It's a very, very cool thing that you're doing, kind of chronicling the sim racing community in an international sense. So very interested to kind of flip it back round, hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. No, it's a good question. I mean, I have to say, because I've been interviewing people on and off for the last couple of years, and it came from watching Super GT, and I thought, I do at that time, it was a Cardio Advisor show where we mainly talked about cars rather than actual racing as such. But if I thought if I could get into someone who was racing, that would be amazing. And then I'd been watching Super GT for quite a while and into all of that. And I just asked him, I gave him a comment. And at the time it was quite quiet, and he answered my comment, and I simply said, I do a podcast. Would you be up for doing that? And he said yes. So it was the first time it was just only a audio only. Then it became video a year or so later. But yeah, no, it's interesting because it seemed to be growing right the way from even 2015 and onwards. You could kind of sense that things were happening. And at that point, I only had the pad. I didn't have the sim rig. And I was desperate to go faster, so I started watching the more like Super GT and other Tidney and others because they were doing, they were so fast. I thought, how on earth can they be 4 or 5 seconds a lap quicker than me? So going on from that to this year, you could sense that it was about to explode. You could sense that there were so many things. I think even without COVID, COVID has been a horrendous thing for everybody. But what was you kind of feel there's been a delay because there's so many, like the sim grid, and there's all these racing leagues, and there's so many things for enthusiasts and GT Sport players and other game players to get involved in. They were all so excited as to what was going to happen. So they're all like people like David Perel was saying, you can't wait to do more sim racing as well as alongside his real racing. So that's kind of what happened. And then when COVID hit, it kind of went quiet for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden, we thought, what's going to happen? And then the sim grid was launched. And then all these kind of championships, like F1 went online, and they had their Formula One esports, which I didn't think was that great, to be fair. I don't think they put into it what they should have done. But it was more of a joke when the Bay races were on. So yeah, I think people see it as it's more exciting than ever. There's more opportunities than ever. And I know from people like David Perel, he wants people to have a chance to, whatever they are today, to get into a championship and to have a chance of winning, to see what it takes to win. And to do it properly. So if they want to do it professionally, they can. And there is now potential that if you do well enough, you could get a seat in a real racing championship. It has now been done. So it's interesting. All of them, like even people like Rory and others, that some of them are quite happy, where they are, or they want to grow their channels and things like that. But maybe they're not. They would like to have a go in a racing car, maybe do a track day. But then some of them you meet and they're desperate to have a go in a real car. They're desperate to race and do something. So I think I can't wait for hopefully for COVID to ease up and for the big events to come back. Because when I spoke to Josh Martin a few weeks back, he was actually racing. He was doing a commentary of a sim race. I think it was a GT3 race at Monza. He was actually at Monza at the end of the pit lane in a building. So when he was commentating on the sim race, the real cars were going past them in the background, and you saw them exiting the pits. So I think the excitement of that, when people can come along and not only watch a race at somewhere like Monza or Silverstone, and then go into a building and watch a sim race, potentially take part, is for me, that's the most exciting thing you could do, because it invigorates you to think, I'm actually involved in motorsport now, So that's been the biggest thing I've gotten from interviewing all these different racers and sim racers and real racers. So it's, I say real racers, but it's a mixture. That's been the thing. I certainly feel. Sorry.
So speaking of that, Hugh, just reminded me, we can announce it first here on this channel. That has reminded me, I am going to be racing Lando Norris in F1 2020 in about a month's time.
Wow!
So we'll be streaming that on the channel. We'll be racing Lando.
That's huge. That's a bit of a bombshell.
Yeah, there's an exclusive for you, Hugh. Big scoop.
I'm going to have to put that in the description. I'm going to have to rewrite the description now.
We're going to be racing Lando Norris.
Fantastic.
It's evening about 22nd or something, November.
Brilliant.
And we'll be practicing more F1 2020 on the stream to get ready for that. But that'll be another good. I think you just reminded me, because you're talking about the explosion. Maybe we need a name for it, Hugh. That what happened to sim racing around March of this year, in kind of, as you say, terrible circumstances, but a big moment for sim racing. I think you've obviously got your finger on the pulse. So it was ready to explode, and it did. And that merging of the real racing world and the sim racing world, which is something that I've been doing my karting, my sim racing, and can vouch and say they feed into the same area.
Yeah, yeah,
I think is now apparent. So yeah, the fact that going to be racing against Lando Norris just shows again that wouldn't have even been conceivable a few years ago that I would be racing against an F1 driver, but now it's actually not that weird, which in itself is weird. But yeah, very very interesting.
No, it is. I mean, I think this is a real way of reinvigorating motorsport and getting the fans involved in a way they could never have done before. And I hope it will be the kind of rebirth of motorsport as we come out of COVID, to be able to do all these big events. We're hoping next year when the Jim Clark Rally's on, because I'm based here in the Scottish Borders in Duns, and we have the Jim Clark Motorsport Museum in Duns, which is just relaunched last year and has done extremely well. And they always have the Jim Clark Rally. Normally it's at the end of May. And we're hoping that the next time it takes place, not only will we have that all there, because it's thousands of people come to Duns to see it, but we will have a proper sim race. And I'll try and get some of the top racers. So you are welcome to come along with all your buddies and community. I always put this out to everybody. We want to see Duns packed out with all these sim racers and fans. And we'll have a marquee. We'll make sure we have lots of sims available, and we'll get the top drivers racing against each other, and hopefully also members of the communities racing against their favourite drivers too. So when it all comes about, I will make sure you have plenty of notice. But it would be lovely to see you. Are you based in the Midlands, or are you down south? How far away are you from Scotland?
I'm not that close to Scotland, but it'll be nice. Be a nice drive. Yeah, definitely excited for that. And I think the kind of that merger of even not at an elite level, but at a low grassroots level, communities that grow in sim racing, when everything reopens, I'm sure people will go karting together. I'm sure our community will go down to the kart track and we'll have a kart race together. And that will be a very special thing, because we'll have raced each other on track many, many times, and we will have that respect, and we'll have that kind of competitive edge, but like a good competitive edge. So I'm sure in the same way that it's like a cycle, things came out of real racing and sim racing. I think it will feed back as well. So that'll be very cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, look, thank you very much, Kireth, for coming on the show. It's been amazing having your insight into the racing and karting and sim racing and all of these things coming together. And hopefully we can see you in the very near future. Remember to keep in touch with us, and we'll be involved in looking at your leagues and trying to come up with your YouTube channel to see how it all grows and how it all works. And of course, we've got many of your community. We're all friends. We're all intertwined in the sim racing community, and it's been fantastic for all of you chaps out there, guys and girls watching tonight from all over the world. It's been a brilliant show, and thank you very, very much for watching tonight. We'll be back again on Monday at 9 o'clock for more Fat Man in a Cheap Sim, which is me racing, and see if we can break the barriers and get to A and S level. That would be the ideal for Monday night. But what a fantastic guest Kireth have been. And it's just brilliant to have you on the show. With all your tips of the trade, I'm sure people will have been really taking that on board and look forward to putting that into practice when they race you next in your lobby. So watch out. They might be learning from what you're saying and keeping you on your toes.
They're all fast to me anyway, Hugh. Thanks a lot for having me on. Really appreciate it. I never really stopped to kind of take stock. Yeah, very, very thank you a lot for the invitation. Very, very happy to be here.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Stay on the line as we finish the show. But our big motto on the Car Sim and Race Driver Show is, of course, this. It's drive fast and try not to crash. See you next week. Take care and bye just now.
See ya.